show is to bring you your next favorite band.
Sweet, that intro is my new favorite band. That's phenomenal. I'm so excited to be on.
Yeah. I heard a rumor that you might be able to play that song live today.
You heard correctly. Yes.
Excellent. So,
good enough for rapping.
I don't know when I rock out here on your next favorite band show.
and listen, it's going to be everybody's favorite band.
Phil, you weren't supposed to make me get all... God almighty,
But this
Phil.
is why we do it.
Like, seriously. I gotta gather myself. All right, go ahead.
Okay.
Welcome to your next favorite band. That's both the show title and our promise to you. We here at Stereophilia Studio are tireless in our pursuit of finding incredible, genre-defiant artists who are either a hot, up-and-coming band or a group that has been delivering for years but have flown under the radar.
Tonight, we have the former frontman of the band the JudyBats, who is now a hauntingly beautiful storyteller with a poetic 90s roots, Jeff
Each
Heiskell.
month, we will bring you live streams, audio podcasts, and perhaps even a live concert where you can listen to the stories and hear the music of artists personally curated by us based on what we feel will be worthy of your time. Be sure to subscribe and tune in to each episode because the possibilities are endless and you never know who will be
Your next favorite band.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. I am your host, Philip Reese.
And it's me. It's Dan Drago, back again.
And you are listening to...
Your next favorite band.
Excellent.
I
Yes,
did it.
you are here. That's the way you often start your show. You're like, hello there, hi there, it's Dan. Yes, it's me. It's yet again.
It's me, yes. here I am. Yeah.
So we're one of our early guests, probably only not even about 6 months in. You came on and we had a wonderful banter about your show, 25 o'clock.
Yes. Philadelphia's longest running music podcast, we think. We believe.
We believe. I heard. Was that Nate Runkle who
Yeah,
gave you that?
Nate, and I said, yeah, that is more affirming than think, because anyone can think anything.
Yes.
But belief.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, then it gets dodgy with belief too, because it's hard to be disproven. But we're pretty sure.
But a wonderful show, 10 years in the running.
Yep.
Over 300 episodes.
Yep.
People need to check that out. All dedicated to the Philadelphia music scene, which is highly admirable.
Yes. And we're about to come back from our January hiatus at the beginning of February. I've got some stuff in the can. I've got some stuff on deck. And then I move, and the show takes on a slightly different format and all that. But that's getting a little in the weeds.
I kind of can't wait to see how you adapt.
Yeah, there is a plan.
Love it.
If I've learned anything at my age, is that you can't do stuff without a plan.
Very, very wise of you. And I wanted to share this observation with you. Being at this moment in the crossroads, in your show, I've noticed that you're very Goldilocks in nature, and this is what I mean by that. You very often talk about one extreme, the opposite extreme, and then land in the middle. And I'll share a couple examples, because one of your, again, catchphrases off the top is whether you're old to the show, new to the show, medium to the show. Yes. So there's like this Goldilocks moment. Oh, yeah. I've also heard you say things like, or another one when you talk about the Patreon, you're like, it doesn't cost a lot of money, but it also doesn't cost no money. It costs a sum of money. So like you're always like, and you've even talked to bands about like bands naming themselves. You've been like, don't be too weird, but don't be too common. Find something like the right amount of weird. Like, and it's like
something. I always say, don't make it too jokey, because remember, it's a joke that you have to tell every time,
every night,
the band,
right.
And if you don't think it's funny now, you will not think it's funny 5 years from now.
After telling it,
roughly. It should be esoteric, but not so esoteric that you have to explain it every time.
Right.
It's tricky. Naming stuff is really hard.
Yep. And so one thing too, like you've introduced me to tons of Philadelphia bands through your show that I've then either sought out to come on the show or even sought out to book, because when we do our live events, obviously Philly is another kind of, community that we can pull from pretty easily. And next month, I'm so sad you won't be here to see it, but our second ever Listen to the Dissonance. So I just kind of want to get your take on the lineup here, because
Oh man, right in the middle. Those are
two of the
my
three I have
two
to
of
thank
my
you for.
favorite people right
Yeah.
there, right in the middle. And that's not to. It's not that John Worthy or Cass Noel wouldn't also be my favorite people if I was familiar with them, which I am not, but I should become familiar with them, and then they can also be my favorite people. But Brittany Ann and Brian Walker, man, talk about two cats who know what they're about.
Yes.
I love and respect both of them very, very much.
Yep. And that same thing comes through of the other two as well. So the lineup here is tremendous. For those of you who may not know, Listen to the Dissonance is a show that's dedicated to songs and conversations about mental health. And so what we do is we ask 4 people who have been on the show before, who did share elements of their mental health journey on the show. And we say, would you be comfortable, brave, and vulnerable enough to get booked for this show, where we're going to talk about pretty much just that, and then also have you share some songs that have come out of those times, whether it's the darker songs or the more hopeful songs. It's whatever they want to play. Last year, it was a very special evening. This year, we're hoping for the same. It was able to move to a Friday night in Bethlehem.
Yeah.
Second booking down in 118 North in Wayne, Pennsylvania. So 2 different chances to see it in 2 different communities again. And really seeing a great response from I'll keep saying the word community, but in essence, what I mean by that is there are tabling organizations. So the National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI, Lehigh Valley will be at the Bethlehem show. The Philadelphia one will be at the Wayne show. Same thing for the United Way. Lehigh Valley chapter will be there. Mainline chapter will be there for the second night. So really, really cool. And then other organizations that offer mental health services will be there as well. From everything from addiction services to adolescents and young adults. So it's a night where you can come and just listen to the stories and the music, but you can also perhaps get some information about people who may be able to help you or a loved one who's in need. And it's just like I had said, it's a special evening.
Yeah, no, I'm bummed to miss it too. We should just be clear too, because I've talked about moving, and I've talked about it on the show before too. But the place I'm moving to isn't close, so that's
right.
I'm moving to Southeast Asia. I'm moving to Hong Kong.
Like a 12 to 13 hour flight to come back for that one.
It's 16. I'm flying out in a few weeks, direct out of JFK. I got a direct flight from New York to Hong Kong, which is 16 hours in the air, which is a new record for me. I think my old record was like 14.
Yeah. I did Tokyo last year and it was 14. So.
Yeah. And at some point at 14, you're just like, what's 2 more?
I guess. But there is a certain point where you just want to either smash your head into the wall or take heavy drugs.
For me, it was that I found some period in the midst of these, any long haul international flight, is time doesn't mean anything anymore.
You're right.
It's neither fast nor slow. You're in this strange sort of
live it.
Yeah, just limbo, and it passes the way it passes. I always remark to myself anytime I've done a long haul is that I always say, I'm like, that didn't feel as long as it maybe should have felt, but it also didn't feel short.
No, you're right about that.
Yeah,
you are right about that. But yeah, so tickets are available already for Listen to the Dissonance at both locations. Come to nextfaveband.com to learn more. And we've got nice additional posts and promotions out there on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Threads, all the good, or shouldn't say good, probably pretty crappy platforms and outlets. But it's out there, or you can, again, just come straight to our website.
These are
Sign up for the newsletter, too. I know you talk about that a lot. That's out there, too. Yeah. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, these are the outlets that have been provided.
Correct. Yeah, that's all we can say about that. Yeah. So one last quick thing before we bring our guest on. I thought this was a fun little graphic. It was a 90s band alignment chart. And so what you can see is up the top, it's from angry to horny, which is weird. Left to right is happy to sad. So you can kind of see where basically smack dab in the middle is the Foo Fighters. And then enjoy, I don't know if anyone jumps out, if you want to go to the far extremes, Rage Against the Machine is the most angry and smack dab between happy and sad. If you go down to the other side, the most horny is Bloodhound Gang. I get that because they had that.
I don't know why the Gin Blossoms are down there. I think they're sadder than
Yeah, they could
than
scooch
horny.
a little to the
I
right.
mean, he's singing about. I mean, Robin's singing about women, but about how he's bad at it, or that they don't like him
Right.
anymore.
Right.
But
Yeah, and then you got Blink 182 very towards the happy, Nirvana very towards the sad, Mazzy Star sad. And I'm just speaking these out loud in case you're listening on the podcast. It's a very fun graphic. There's a lot of humorous things in there. There is something called a sarcasm belt that circles the inner sanctum. Cake is right on square on that. I guess Offspring is too. They may not realize they were sarcastic, but
I don't think Not a Surf or Flaming Lips are particularly sarcastic. I think
I
those
didn't
are
understand
two
that
very.
either.
I think those are two very genuine, authentic bands. I think Flaming Lips are very irreverent, maybe, but also like they're just weird.
Sure.
And Not a Surf, with the exception of the one song that most people know, Matthew Cause is probably one of the best songwriters from the 90s into the aughts.
there you go.
I
Andrega with a
don't,
hot take right there.
I don't hold that they're sarcastic. Cake, maybe. Eels he is not sarcastic. He is far
definitely
too
not.
sad. He's
Right.
sad.
Well, that's the
sarcastic,
thing is,
though.
right? Exactly. So then, like the others in the center that I guess they're kind of saying touch on maybe all four equally in some ways. Soundgarden, Smashing Pumpkins, Oasis, REM, Pearl Jam, Stone Temple Pilots. I kind of just wanted to kind of put it out there that I really think tonight's guest would be able to different songs touch on all of these. And so I think they would squarely fit in the middle here. Tonight is one of those nights where we get to bring on somebody who was an icon for me. And then the reason why Dan came on as well is for him as well. Me for college, you more for high school.
Yeah.
But it was a band we listened to nonstop. And I just love bringing on music that, was from that time frame to point at it with how great it is, because to me, it's still relevant today. If it came out now, it would still be highly thought of. And then continuing the story to what are they doing today? Because he's still writing great music now that people should be paying attention to. So just under a different name. So we always do this here. We start by bringing in some music. This would probably be the song that, even if you don't think you ever heard of the JudyBats before, you might hear this song and be like, oh, wait, I remember that song. Because it got play on MTV. It was their highest charting song. I think it made it to number 7 on the charts. And so here's the song Being Simple by the JudyBats.
Hearts cannot be broken. They're small, squishy things. They don't break like glass, but they bruise easily. This one you bruise. Words will not be spoken, never knowing what they mean. Sticks and stones hurt my bones, and promises have broken me. Each one you break. And I want to be good, but good is being simple. Simple is forgetting. I simply can't forget. I want to be good, but good is being simple. Simple is forgetting, and I simply can't forget.
Super honored to welcome to the show, frontman right there singing this one amazingly, Jeff Heiskell. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Jeff.
We are doing amazing. Thank you so much for spending some time with here to dive into this catalog from the JudyBats phase to also kind of tell your story and then also into what you've been up to lately. I can't wait to dive in, but first and foremost, just thank you for this. And we're going to let that kind of play there because, again, this was, I would think, for you and the band, a point at which you had, some pretty high aspirations for where this was going to head to.
Yeah, it's so strange looking at that.
I was about to
I don't
ask
ever
you.
revisit any of this stuff. So I'm like, dang. Yeah.
Who's that? I was going to ask you. I said,
Who's that handsome devil?
What do you
Yeah.
think when you encounter your former, essentially a former version of yourself in the wild? Like, I'm sure it pops up from time to time, and you have to sit there and be like, you must feel pretty removed from it, but also still have memories of it. It's a very interesting feeling.
Yeah, because there are a lot of good memories associated with it, and there are some bad ones as well.
Sure, right.
I was definitely a very different person back then.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
I mean, yeah.
I think I was pretty naive at that point. I might have been. See, our manager lied to the record company and told them I was 24 or 25. When we got signed, I was actually about to turn 30.
Oh, okay.
So in that video there, I'm like 33. I think I'm 33. Yeah, something like that.
Got it.
So it was
Well, you
it was
looked
strange.
you looked young, so I can see why that worked.
Yeah, no, I can remember. Of course, I gave up cigarettes years ago. I remember I used to get carded for cigarettes when I was 40 years old.
Yeah. It's interesting too, because it is, especially at that time, and I'm sure we'll get into this in the conversation, because something I had said to Phil as we were kind of talking before this was the era of the JudyBats to me is I find it a fascinating era because it's post 80s but pre alt boom. So it's this very interesting period of time. I think it's about 3-ish years between like 89 and 92, where a lot of music has the aesthetics of 1980s production. The record industry is still functioning very much like it did in the 1980s, with money just literally falling from the sky. And everyone's lying in wait because Marshall stacks are about to like blow everything out, both literally and figuratively. Weird is about to be in for a very, very brief period of time. And suddenly like Polish and, a video that looks like that, like suddenly isn't cool anymore. It's such a bands that come out in 91 are like fascinating to me.
Yeah. You're right. That was a time, that's CDs were a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you remember I can remember, when there weren't CDs and when CDs were suddenly the new format. I mean, it was amazing, and then here we are, 30 years later, and who has CDs?
I mean, I still have way too many, but
yeah, I know. I have a couple myself.
Yeah. And let me bring up so this was the album cover, since we're talking about CDs. Like, this is what you would have seen in the stores for that particular one. We are going to go back a little bit in time to talk about kind of like the journey that the band went on. And then as people who listen to the show, we also like to go way back to your personal story to see where kind of like music grabbed a hold of you. We're going to do that more after we come through the JudyBats story. So it's almost going to kind of be a story told in two parts. First, kind of about the JudyBats, so that we kind of share with the audience that. But then I want to talk about the Jeff Heiskell experience. And so we'll kind of roll through that a little bit. It'll make sense as we go. But here, what I heard was the JudyBats were born over whiskey and beer at a bar called Hawkeye's.
Yeah, there's a neighborhood called Fort Sanders. It's adjacent to the University of Tennessee. And there was a bar and a house. It was a house that had been converted into a bar.
That's awesome.
That's where we all met. And the three of the people that the original band lineup, they lived in the house across the street. And Ed and myself had started writing music. And
so this is Knoxville, Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
Early 80s?
It's in 87.
80, okay, late 80s.
Yeah.
And you and Ed Winters, who's a really great guitarist, right?
Yeah.
So the two of you are kind of doing your beginnings of a project. And then there's this other, like you said, a house across the street, Tim Stutz, Johnny Shugrue, and Terry Casper. Is that the right
Yeah.
name?
Yeah.
Okay. So they are, I guess, again, the way I read it was you and Tim were at the Hawkeyes and you just walked up to him and said, "I hear a lot of music coming out of your house. Do you want to just chat about doing stuff together?" Is that accurate? Is that the right way it went down?
Yeah. I said, I hear y'all. I probably, it's probably less flattering than that. I probably said, I hear y'all over there kind of banging around doing whatever it is you think you're doing over there. Would you like to get together with Ed and I?
That's pretty awesome. And I did read something. I think it was either Tim or one of the other two, that one of them in an interview of their own said it was pretty clear to us right away that Jeff and Ed were way better at music than we were.
Well, yeah, because they were just kind of banging around. I mean, they weren't thinking about craft or anything like that at all over there. And so, yeah, it worked really, we all learned together.
Sure.
Which was a good thing.
Yeah. And then I guess you start to build up a following as you start to play live in the Knoxville area. And then you put together a demo and got signed by Sire Records, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And again, for maybe people who don't know, Sire Records, you're talking about the Smiths, Echo and the Bunnymen, Talking Heads, the Ramones, like a rather significant signing for you.
It was a very big deal in town.
Yeah.
It was unheard of.
Right. And the cool thing about Sire too at the time was that it both was a large label and had a pedigree for success, but also like a pedigree for like really great adventurous bands. I mean, all the CBG, most of the CBGB's bands that got signed in the late 70s all ended up on Sire because they were willing to go out kind of into the trenches and be like, okay, who's interesting, who's kicking around.
It was a good fit.
Yeah,
definitely.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And how else does that, like, I mean, obviously massive validation, but like, how does that just make everybody like, where are you all at mentally? Like, how does that just simply hit for you all? That's got to be very, very cool. Again, age-wise, it's still very early on for a lot of people in their music careers.
I don't know what to say other, when I got the call that we were getting signed, I mean, I didn't call anybody. I went and ran a hot bath and laid in the bathtub for 30 minutes, just thinking about it all.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't let anyone know at that time how focused I was on making that happen.
Sure.
But then when it did happen, it made me nervous.
Yeah.
I can understand. When I told we would there was a really cool club here at the time called Planet Earth, and Chuck Burnley, who owned that club, he's passed away, who was a very difficult and colorful character. I went down there to the bar. I said, "Hey," I said, "Chuck," I said, "we're getting signed to Warner Brothers."
Mm-hmm.
And he laughed and he got right in my face. And he said, "Jeffrey, congratulations." He said, "but that business is going to break your heart."
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
No, it's unfortunate that like we have to get to the other side of that. I've heard that story multiple times from many people. And at the time you're like, well, this is the best. Like, this is great. I finally got to do it. It's a goal achieved. And then you're just like, unfortunately, now you have to live through the music industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do. Like, you were just playing that, that video that you just played.
Sure.
I did not enjoy that at all.
I don't imagine that anyone.
I'm sure you did.
Video at that level.
Like dance around.
Right.
I'm like, I'm not a dancer.
Right.
I don't dance around.
Sure.
And it's something that simple just ran all over me.
Mm-hmm.
And then all that stuff in the water with that with the
fog machine or whatever.
The fog machine.
Yeah.
They kept doing that so much that I started turning blue and passing out.
Yeah, there'd be no oxygen underneath that.
No. I was like, I feel really weird.
Yeah.
Like,
really you were like having whippets, like you were getting high off lack of oxygen.
I'm a trooper, and they just kept putting me in the water and bring me up. And I can't remember who it was. I think it was Shirley Divers was there that was instrumental in getting us. She said, I think he's turning blue. Yeah. So, even the video stuff, sometimes it was fun and sometimes it wasn't.
No, and there's some other things we're going to touch on a little bit where that definitely plays a role as well. But the first, hopefully Warner didn't shut down this stream, and we're talking to ourselves at this point, because sometimes YouTube bots just go and say, you need approval for this, and I'm always like, I have the songwriter and performer on the show, so I have approval. Anyway, but hopefully we're good. But other than that, the quality, like the videos, we have more we're going to play. Obviously, they're from a time when the quality wasn't as good, and I'm peeling it off of the internet. So apologies for some of these that get a little blocky at different times, but it's still so fun to dive back. And I cleaned up the audio, so the audio is always going to be solid. And I'm only preface that because this next one is such a great tune. Basically, Sire Records is throwing together a tribute to Ricky Erickson and the 13th Floor Elevators, an album called Where the Pyramid Meets the Eye. And you will get asked to perform the song She Lives in a Time of Her Own. And it's a tremendous cover. So tell us about that. Like, this is
we were, it was when we were making that first record.
Right.
And we were just told we could do a song off of there. And I can't remember. I don't think we got to choose. I can't remember how that song got chosen. But, we were probably at the very end of that, and probably like, here's a song, you should do this song because it's the only one left because everybody else has chosen their song. So we learned that song one day and we recorded it the next. I had never heard of. I'm not a music person at all. Even as I've gotten older, I'm a real nerd about all that. I had never heard of the 13th Floor Elevators. I had no idea who Roky Erickson was.
Yeah.
And but no, I had a real good time doing it.
Yeah. I mean, it's an incredible version of it, and the video is super fun too. So let's take a look at and listen to She Lives in a Time of Her Own, covered by the JudyBats.
No, it's like painted on.
It's good, clean family fun.
Good, clean family fun.
She lives, no fear, doubtless in everything she knows. Through time, unchecked, the sureness of her flows. She leaves herself inside you when she goes. Her love grips hard like wind and stabs in eager pain. She wins your thoughts and drives your inner flames. She clears and shares a love that never drains. In a time of her own, she lives. In a time of her own.
We neglected to mention that's Peggy Hambright, correct?
That's Peggy. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's vocals and keys and a couple other instruments and such that she also had joined the band back during this time as well.
She did. Yes.
Yeah. And added such a very cool component, I think, to things. I just think this puts on display, obviously, I think this caught a lot of people's attention. So here you are as a new signing of this amazing label at the time, and your first thing that you get asked to put out gets a lot of people excited about what's to come.
Yeah. It was so strange. Well, you just can't even imagine. Knoxville back then was not a very big city.
Sure.
And the whole concept that people were coming down here going to film a rock video, it was in the newspaper. I mean, it was. Now when I think back on that, it was a huge deal that we were doing a music video. Wow, look at that. The hair.
Right, the hair.
Gosh.
There'll be a mention of hair again later, I think you have, even though, what always catches my ear is someone that's there's a distinct sound. The vocals are amazing. I mean, there's just such great stuff going on to me. As I was again, like I mentioned to you before we came on, like I put on the Pain Makes You Beautiful album, and I was like, this is still great. Like I still enjoy. The next track that came on was just going like, oh my God, I love this one too. And that's when I reached out to see if you'd be willing to come on. And then when I went back through just remembering all these prior tracks and other stuff that's come up, it's like, this is such great music. To me, it always shocked me that it didn't become more popular, more, just accepted as incredible.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that whole journey, I don't know what to say about that. I mean,
right.
You know, why it didn't become super duper giant, I have no idea. You know,
but you definitely.
I can't remember who his name. Freed. This Monkey's Gone to Heaven.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
The label and the publisher. That was supposed to be a crossover. That was supposed to be the biggest hit in the whole world, and just make the Pixies the most giant band ever. And it didn't.
Nope.
Yeah.
It didn't. But that they had really planned that's what that was going to do, but it didn't. So
sure.
It's interesting too in this particular era too, and it's always weird asking people influences, because if you get it wrong, then you just look like a fool. But
go for it, Dan.
Particularly in your vocals on this and some of the early records, are you a Stan Ridgway guy? Are you into Wall of Voodoo?
You know, there must just be something similar about the timbre.
It is, yes, exactly that. You don't sound alike what you do.
People used to make that comparison all the time. And other than that Mexican radio song, I have no idea what any of his stuff is or what it sounds like. I don't even know where he's from or anything.
They're an LA band. They were of the same era as like X and like Los Lobos and the Go-Go's. Like that was kind of their scene, late 70s, West Hollywood type of thing. And yeah, but I hear it in the timbre because, or the timbre, I'm sorry, not the timbre.
It is timbre. It is timbre. Yeah.
I was going to say we're going to build a fire or something.
Yes. Because there's, and people think of Mexican radio and he's singing in a very exaggerated Stan Ridgway but there are also songs of his where he sings. And that was what I was hearing right there. Just and a little bit of Stipe in there as well. But I think that's because you both probably have, Southern accents to that. Those of us who don't know the difference between Southern accents would sort of just lump together into one sort of sound.
I think too. Yeah, I will agree with that. I think the Southern accent thing is what can make some musicians sound the same. Because at the time, back then, I come from folk. Yeah, I was listening to folk music. I was obsessed with Joni Mitchell.
Awesome.
I probably, if I had never, I don't want to say I was dating this dude. We tried that and it didn't work. But he turned me on to the group, the Roaches.
Oh yeah.
If I had never heard the Roaches, I would have never written any music.
Interesting. Wow. What was it about the Roaches?
It's just the harmonies, the subject matter, how glib a lot of it was, and some of it was funny. I had never heard anything like that. I was just blown away when I heard. I got all of their CDs, and I would just listen to them over and over and over again. So that's a lot of what I was listening to when this band was put together.
That's interesting. I would never have pegged that.
Wow.
I would have thought definitely that you were a big Smiths guy as well, because there's just something.
No, I will go ahead. I've said this in public before, and I'll say it again. That Morrissey, Lord, that always got on my nerves. Back in the day, you couldn't say that.
Right.
You say it now.
You had to keep your mouth shut. That was it. So I would just not say anything.
Right.
I was like, gosh, can we whine anymore? Yeah. So.
Yeah, I had only ever listened to like How Soon Is Now, which is a great song. But then as I dove into anything else, I'm like, ugh.
For song on song number 4, I'm like, you need to turn that off.
Yeah.
Right now.
Right. Yeah. So that the track does end up on the first album, Native Son, as well as.
And I don't think that was planned. That's going way back.
Sure.
I don't think that was planned that it was going to be on the first record.
But it did so well, or it sounded so good.
They didn't know. They didn't know if it was going to sound good or not. So.
Yeah. But lots of other great tracks. It becomes a very big college radio hit, that whole album, and in particular one track called Daylight. I was going to bring it in here, but before we do, I kind of wanted to get through, because again, like, here you are, you're in the recording studio, and this is that kind of like first steps of the journey now on a label, and just simply laying that all, the tracks down and stuff. How was that kind of, because I know some members of the band leave right after this record is recorded, so there's got to be some difficulty navigating that.
Well, I was trying to think. So I'm going back. It's hard. So I'm going back to when we did the first record. And for the most part, there was someone that was in the band that was horrible to get along. I mean, it was so toxic back before we used the word toxic.
Sure.
Somehow we got through all that with that first record. And and the record still turned out pretty good.
Yeah, it sure did.
But that exodus, the drummer, the original drummer, him leaving the band, that happened actually 1 week into us recording the second record.
Oh, that's right. I do remember that.
Yeah,
I remember.
And I'm going to tell you, the tension had gotten it. It had gotten to a point. I just can't, thinking back on it now, I don't even know how the band stayed together.
Sure.
That's how bad it was.
So before we jump to that second record, let me just play Daylight, because I think it's, again, one of those like top songs from the entire catalog that, again, some people may remember or recognize. And if you haven't ever heard of it, you're going to love it. So here is Daylight by the JudyBats.
She slipped up on daylight. Night was her best companion, I've heard it told, yeah. She slipped up on daylight. Crack in the sidewalk, she up and disappeared and sang, whoa, daylight, daylight. Whoa, daylight, daylight. All the people gather around said, gosh, we really like that girl. And the boy said he always knew she was falling slowly, going nowhere. And some boy said you really should have been here, I swear. She up and disappeared, it was really too weird. She slept up in daylight, cold in the morning, I wish you met her.
I mean, this just brings me, like, the way the music can just kind of bring you right back to a time and place, right back to sophomore year of college. And in fact, it was off of Pain Makes You Beautiful, but us seeking out your other music and just finding all this other amazing stuff.
Yeah.
It's that reverb. Is reverb. Like I can picture, like, I was very young when this came out, and I probably heard it a little later. But there's an era of particular digital reverb for me as an engineer that I'm just like, that will take me. I'm like, oh, I can tell you what year
that came out.
Yeah. And with the video too, and the general sound of the guitar, it reminds me of like XTC was recording stuff that sounded very similar to this from a production standpoint.
Sure.
And I think of bands like the House Martins, and then later Beautiful South, that very kind of like British melodic kind of, I guess we would call it folk rock because there's an acoustic guitar in it, but like it's an era. It's a very specific time.
Well, and all of those bands that you just mentioned, once again, I'm a music nerd.
Yeah.
All of those bands are what other band members were listening to at the time.
It makes sense.
So I had to have heard some of that.
Yeah.
Some of it had to have gotten in here.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't actively listening to that, but that's what they were listening to. Tim especially. Tim and Terry would have been listening to all of those bands that you just named.
Sure.
That was all they were listening to.
Yeah.
Now, like you said, the instrumentation and such is really amazing on this, and this is a band that was somewhat in, not exactly sync during the recordings. Is that great guitar? Is that the Ed Winters parts?
Mm-hmm. The plucked guitar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I would have figured. But I mean, it's really great. I mean, again, like, it's just such a joy to listen to.
Ed was classically trained.
Awesome.
It's guitar playing before. Gosh, I'd forgotten that. Ed had a acoustic classical guitar. Ed had never had an electric guitar until we started making music.
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
I forgot all about that. Yeah. There are songs that are somewhere. There's 4 or 5 songs that are very, very folky. That are songs that Ed and I wrote that have no electronic. There's nothing electric on them at all.
Sure. Would you ever put them out under Heiskell, or is that just not your sound?
Gosh.
Like doing it in a new way. Like, I just think that would be a cool thing.
That's something about me. I'm all about the present.
Sure.
And the future. I'm not one to go back and redo something from the past.
Sure.
That's just not that's just not my bag. It's just like, when people ask me, would you ever put the band back together and tour and all that? And I'm like, that would never.
No. I can totally
I
understand.
don't care.
This
that
though is
never happened.
Right. Yeah. This though is like it never saw daylight. See what I did there? But like you would come out as new to everyone else. So anyway, you did pause. I'll take that as a win.
Yeah.
He thought about it. Okay. And I'm sorry to keep throwing the songs out there, but again, like to me, like the catalog is so cool, and I just want people to get a nice flavor of everything. The second album, since we got to there, was recorded in Woodstock, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
As was the first.
Oh, okay.
It was just recorded. The first record was recorded in, what was the name of that? It's a little studio in a house. But we mixed. It was recorded someplace there on the edge of Woodstock, but it was mixed at Bearsville.
Yeah, I was about to ask if Bearsville came into it. Yeah.
Yeah, but then the second record was recorded and mixed at Bearsville. I'm correct on that. Yeah.
That's of that era. That is sort of the one-stop shop in Woodstock. And now there's tons of rooms, and it's sort of a complete new generation of Woodstock recording rooms now. But all those old places are still kicking around.
Well, except for Bearsville, it's depressing.
Yeah.
Somebody told me it's a storage facility with a chain link fence around it.
The less said about that, probably.
Yeah. That's sad.
So this record is called Down in the Shacks Where the Satellite Dishes Grow. And I just think that's obviously an incredibly unique title, and it's definitely one to go check out. It had a pretty big hit on it called Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And did I hear that it was originally titled Killing Machine, but the label made you change it? Is that story?
I think that's right. I think we wanted to call it the Killing Machine. Yeah, but...
Yeah.
Yet another place where the label was changing who you were.
Well, but that line, Down in the Shacks Where the Satellite Dishes Grow. I mean, that's if you're a songwriter person, you come up with that, you're like, dang, that's good. You got that. Why not make that the title?
Yeah.
It worked to me.
Oh, totally. Absolutely. And then you had a knack for finding a cover song and doing an amazing JudyBats version of it. You had a song by the Kinks called Animal Farm.
It's a good tune.
Yes, which I had never heard. I was not. I mean, now I'm very familiar with the Kinks. I had not listened to a lot of the Kinks. I had never heard of this. I think Peggy is the one that said, "Let's do a cover of Animal Farm."
Yeah. And it's great. Like,
I'm very, even now I do some covers when I'm in the mood.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I'm very adventurous like that. And I'm somebody, I like when I'm assigned a task.
Yeah.
So and I think it was Peggy that brought that up. Is it Peggy or Tim? And I'm like, I can't imagine us doing that song. Yes, let's definitely do that.
Right. That's fun. This sounds nothing like us. I'm in.
Yeah.
But this was another fun story I thought would be cool to hear about. Apparently, as you're recording, the B-52s are in the studio next to you and then invite you to their Halloween party. Yeah,
they were there for quite at least 2 weeks. Because I remember standing outside the that drummer was so awesome. I remember being outside the day that their drummer that they were tracking Love Shack.
Oh wow!
And he was doing that drum track in that huge room there. Yeah, we went. There was a bowling alley, and Kate Pearson, you know, one of these vegans. Don't get me going. She had vegan hot dogs and white bread, and something else was there. But anyway, yeah. So we went to this little bowling alley down some little old street, and then yeah, it was nice. It was kind of fun, and then a pickup truck pulled up outside. That's back when I was still smoking. Right. So I was outside, and this big old pickup truck pulled up, and these two gals got out, and I was like, God, who are those lesbians? And it was the Indigo Girls.
I was just gonna guess it was the Indigo Girls.
Little ball caps and stuff, and I'm like, who are those people?
Oh, what's funny is I was just gonna say, like, I can just I had such a smile on my face picturing this party where it's the B-52s and the JudyBats, and I'm like, I wonder who else stopped by. And
yeah, I was outside, and I was like, woo, who is that?
Yeah. Oh, that is so great.
Yeah, because Johnny and this is back when you had video machines, video games, you know.
Sure.
There was a Tetris.
Oh, yeah.
There was a Tetris machine in the break room.
Do that for hours.
And, oh, God, Johnny and Fred Schneider, they would stand there and play that Tetris machine for like 2 hours nonstop. I'm like, how can y'all keep playing that? It was really addictive. Yeah.
That's incredible.
And now it's all on our phones. So
yeah, it's all on our phones now.
Yeah.
So there was one track I wanted to specifically laser in on. I loved it at the time, couldn't figure out why. And then as I've done the research, I learned that it might be, and I'm going a little bit out on a limb here as an interviewer, but like might be your favorite JudyBats song to either perform or just where it landed. And I heard that you actually wanted to perhaps even put out full albums of music that sounded like Is Anything.
Yes, that's something we could spend hours talking about.
We'll have you back. We'll do a whole other episode on just
types of music that I would have liked to have made.
Sure.
But I could not make that music with those people.
No, right. Well, even interesting was there was a video for it. I mean, and so like it was definitely not, if you think about the formulas that were going on at the time, which was like pre-algorithms of we only want to put this stuff out. Yeah. And it has the word fuck in it. So like to be able to go so far as to say we're going to put a video out of this song was bold.
It was,
and I loved it. Like I was your target audience, but I don't know that I was the popular audience.
Yeah, that it was what that was supposed to be if it had been my way, that would have been the first single.
Sure. Right. Well, let's take a listen again, because again, people can hear there is a JudyBats core to this thing, but it's a wildly different sound. So here is Anything by JudyBats.
Is what is
rather good drumming here because you had a session drummer for the recording of this.
Yes, yeah, we brought in. Oh gosh, I can't remember his name. I'm not going to pretend I can. I think his first name was Kevin.
Okay.
He was very nice.
Yeah, and again, 21-year-old me was like, yeah, inject this right into my veins.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to me, and I love every minute of it.
Well, I think this is the point we would have to look and see. My Bloody Valentine?
Sure.
Yeah.
Isn't anything. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is when I had started listening to My Bloody Valentine, and it had become like a huge.
Sure.
I was obsessed with My Bloody Valentine.
Is this a point in your songwriting where, up to this point in the JudyBats, you're living in that sort of standard singer-songwriter world? You're writing verses and choruses. There's poetry. You're singing like a person telling a story, and then you get a song like this where you're just like, oh, it turns out that the words can kind of just be whatever we want it to be. It's the feeling, it's what we evoke. It's not necessarily the words we say, because that sort of becomes a thing in pop music as well. It stops being literal and starts being more evocative.
Right, and we touched on this earlier. I come from folk.
Yeah,
and there's always a story in a folk song.
Yeah,
it's always a story. And so this was just me just developing going in a different direction as far as when I was doing my lyric writing.
Yeah.
Things could be just completely cryptic.
Yeah, it's evocative. People can draw their own conclusions. Sorry, there are jets flying over me right now because the Eagles game is starting.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Anyway, it's the idea of, it's almost postmodern, where it's like we're not trying to tell you a story. It's it's loud, it's kind of brash and bratty. Feel the way you need to feel with this song. Yeah.
Totally.
And then you guys, were you able to kind of keep making music like this, or was this sort of like not voted out, but it'd be like, well, okay, that was fun. We let Jeff do the fun one. All right, now let's go back to the formula. Let's go back to the thing that works.
Well, once again, that was just an unusual song to make that happen.
Yeah, sure.
And I would have had to have formed another band on the side.
Yeah.
If I wanted to go in that direction, because the people I was making music with at the time, that's just not their bag.
Yeah.
Not where they're from.
Yeah.
So good. I love that track. And then I loved hearing more about that, like where it stemmed from you. I was like, cool, I was onto something. Yeah. But one last question on Down in the Shacks. So we mentioned lesbians. You have the song Margot, known as Missy, which was about a female, and
that's autobiographical.
Yes.
I had a huge crush on Missy, and now her name is, she became Margot. I almost followed her to New York City to go to cooking school.
That's amazing.
When she left, I gave her a really expensive bicycle.
Wow.
Oh wow.
Who gives somebody like a $2,000 bicycle?
You do.
I know. And it wasn't like I had a bunch of bicycles. It was the only bicycle I had. And she to this day, she owns a very successful restaurant in Nashville called Margot.
Wow.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So my question though is about the midway point. You say funky break, hey baby, bake me a cake, which comes out of nowhere. Was that like, is there a story behind it?
No, who knows where that came from?
Okay, because I thought maybe it was like in a take that was like something went wrong and you just said it, and then we were like, oh, let's keep that. I don't know. Like it always struck me as something that was so funny, like in a great way.
Well, I don't know. I don't drink and work.
Sure.
Well, I know I wasn't drunk, but
right.
I really can't tell you where that came from.
Darn it. I was hoping there was such a fun story there. And so now we're moving into Pain Makes You Beautiful. I got to think too. So both of those records we're seeing, so Native Son, Down in the Shacks Where the Satellite Dishes Grow, got definitely good play on college, was hitting the charts in various different ways. And so people are obviously getting excited for this next record, and it takes things to another level. What was the label saying? What was like kind of like the feeling of things, like, because it felt like this was, you know, in the research and in retrospect, like this was just yet another giant step forward for the overall band and the sound.
Well, I will tell you this. Somebody reminded me of this recently. The record label did not want us doing a record with Kevin Maloney.
Oh, interesting.
Everything that you like about that record, about how pretty it is, everything was getting ready to go grunge.
Yeah, that was the time. Yeah.
And everything was going grunge. Choosing him and making that record was antithetical to moving forward as an, alternative artist.
Yeah.
Really the whole adult alternative format was about to completely go away.
Yeah.
And that was a format.
Yeah.
They would have wanted us to choose someone different and make a brasher, more rock type record.
I mean, that was the key, but they were asking everyone to do that who had sort of success. I mean, look at REM. Well, REM's Monster is there, like, fine, you want us to make a rock, like a brash rock record, we'll make it, but we'll make it our way. But that was happening to a lot of bands, and I
almost got in. I can't remember his name. He was a pretty famous tennis star back then. That was a fan. Used to follow us around. We almost got in a fist fight on the tour bus about me talking about that record. About no, they just wanted to do a rock record. I said no, they didn't.
Yeah,
they're sellouts. Somehow they got pushed toward doing that. And it was all like, bro. He had to be taken off the tour bus. We almost got in a fight.
It gets intense. It gets intense in that mid-90s transitional period. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that is funny. So two people leave the band. Tim Stutz and Peggy ends up leaving the band at this point. And then they get replaced by Paul No and David Jenkins.
Yes.
And that was the Pain Makes You Beautiful album, has them on it, correct?
Yeah, correct.
And that, again, like, even though they wanted a different sound, it still did fairly well. That Being Simple song charts out at number 7. There's other great tracks on there. You go on to Conan O'Brien around this time, right? And probably other outlets, too.
Yeah. Was on the Conan O'Brien show.
That's fun. There are clips of that out there for people to check out. And I don't know if this is exactly when this happens, but I just thought it was fun that I found it. So I kind of wanted to share this little
word about next week's show after this for Budweiser.
Hey, everybody, here's to you. No one nowhere doesn't like you too. For coming through, yeah, it's clear. You're the best and what's your fear? Nothing beats a beer. Budweiser, nothing beats a bud. Ooh, yeah.
You know what you want, the pure natural taste of Budweiser. The ice-cold king of beers that's like you, like no other. Pretty cool, huh?
Nothing beats a bud.
Anheuser-Busch, yeah. St. Louis, Missouri.
So, I just thought that was amazing.
I'm sorry.
All about that.
I'm sorry, Jeff. Who REM were sellouts? Like, who?
I know.
But it's such a product of that era of music where everyone was just like, well, I don't know, throw them on a commercial. Maybe we can make it like it was.
Yeah, it's like, well, so it's like it needs to sound kind of like Native Son, and of course, I was dying inside.
Of course, yes.
I'm like, how are we really going to do this?
When Phil was playing
they're going to pay you. I can't remember how many thousands of dollars they paid us.
And apparently a couple cases of beer too, didn't they give you?
Yes, that awful beer.
And that was the other thing. I've learned that you're a fan of cheap beer, but definitely not Budweiser.
No. So you got, I don't know how many cases of that beer. We got some thousands of dollars. I think the hotel we stayed at was the Waldorf
Well, there you go.
Wow.
We were on tour. So we were passing through there anyway. That whole thing was done in 4 hours in the studio. It was learned and recorded.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you talk about embarrassing. Not that I care what other people think that much, but while we're in that little studio, and we're doing that, Pat Metheny walks through.
Oh, jeez.
Talk about, hey, how y'all doing? We kind of introduce. What are y'all doing? And I'm like, we're
making a
we're doing a commercial for Budweiser.
Pat Metheny.
And he says, oh my God, he had his guitar case, and he was just like, oh, cool. You could just hear just the he was just grossed out.
Oh, man.
He went through the door into another studio. I was like, God, that's so embarrassing.
It was like Pat Metheny, like one of the most authentic,
exactly
artists, like a guy who would rather eat broken glass than do what you guys are doing.
We're, we're recording a Budweiser commercial.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
Oh my gosh, that's funny though.
That is funny. Well, thank you for
while Phil was playing it, I was just like, Phil, should you play this? Like, I don't know.
No, it's awesome. I used to have a cassette of it a million years ago. I don't even know where you found that.
The internet is undefeated at this point. As long as you know how to use a search term, I find all sorts of whack stuff over time, and I loved that we came across that. But I should state we are not sponsored by Budweiser
in any way,
in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, I just thought it was, and again, like you said, like it was such a JudyBats sound. Like it was just like,
and that's what they wanted. That was at a time, I think, when that Native Son song was.
Yeah,
I think it was, maybe we were working on the second record,
mm-hmm.
but I think that Native Son was still kind of getting some play. So
It's a tight jingle. It's just a shame that it's a jingle.
Yeah, I know. Can you believe that? That was, done, recorded, everything. 4 hours. We're out of there.
Yeah.
I do love the part where you're like, pretty cool, huh? But yeah. So, and there's one more kind of clever, funny thing that I think we'd be remiss not to touch on. Very often, you would close out a set with this track that I just think is a pillar of awesome. So let's just let it play. We'll talk about it.
Pixie shag feather, all to which my heart is tethered. I'm just a pervert, and a quad is really what I wanna bob. I dream of this girl with hair so big that I'm wallowing in it like a randy pig. Munching and I'm munching like a sunset bar. Doing it to it like I'm off the war. All I wanna do is fuck your hair. All I wanna do is fuck your hair. Lucid, gelling, I don't care. Cause all I wanna do is fuck your hair. I'm a fan of Morgan Fairchild. Her big old hair makes me crazy.
Only found on the Daylight CD single, I present you All I Want to Do Is Fuck Your Hair. Which I have to think. Please tell me this is about someone from Long Island.
I think that is the first or the second song we ever wrote.
Oh, that's so great.
It's got to be an early one. When there are no stakes, that's when you write a song like that.
Yeah. And we... right behind Hawkeye's, there was a pool party, and somebody played. We had only written 7 songs, I think,
and that was one of them.
And we played that at a frat pool party for, I don't know, $150.
And is it about someone from Long Island? I've just always hoped that it was.
It was just making fun of, the
80s hair, 80s big hair,
80s hair, yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, just incredible, and it does have a little bit more of that kind of country swing shit kicking kind of song. So it doesn't shock me that it was from very early on. But yeah, you would close out sets with this. So the first time we ever heard it, we saw you play in Rochester at was it called 3Ds? Does that sound right? Was there a place called?
Yeah. I remember playing in Rochester because of how cold it was.
Yeah.
Right. So
That's
we
where
went
I'm
and saw
from
you.
originally.
Yeah, right. And we left school. We were in college in about an hour south of Rochester. So we all hopped in cars because you were coming to town. Went up and saw you play. You and I, after your set, had about a 30-minute conversation about Don Quixote and La Dulcinea. Because that's one of the tracks on Pain Makes You Beautiful. You won't remember that, but I do. And you closed the set with this song, and we were like, what was that? It was amazing. We have to find it. And you told us it was only on the Daylight CD single. So we may or may not, cannot confirm or deny, lifted it from the college radio station because they had it, and we couldn't find it anywhere else. There was no internet to go buy something like that.
Yeah, wow. That's a long time ago.
Yeah. Right. But yeah, incredible track. A great way to end a set too. Like, holy smokes.
Well, just that you know, when we got signed, all these songs are lost to time.
Oh, interesting.
When the JudyBats got signed, we had several songs. Most of our songs fell into that same category as what you just heard.
Oh, interesting.
It was not that pretty stuff that you heard from the JudyBats.
No.
Oh, wow.
We could have done a record called Mean Songs About Girls. I think Peggy said that. I mean, we had a song, She's Going to Cancun. God, I can't remember and it's about some sorority girls going to Cancun and getting the shits. And it was just completely, y'all, it was a whole different kind of band.
Right.
And then they kind of, the label kind of glommed onto some of the other songs, and then the band just suddenly kind of changed.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Yeah, no, but it's, I mean, when you first get together in a band, like you were doing it just for all y'all to get a kick out of. Like, that's just kind of what it is.
Yeah.
There
was nothing pretentious about, we're going to be this kind of cool melodic.
Yeah.
Whatever the band turned into, that is not what we were doing when we got together. We were just getting shit-faced drunk and writing
songs,
trying to write a song. Yeah.
But continuing the story here, this is where it starts to come to an end. So Pain Makes You Beautiful does well, but the label wants you to put out another album very, very quickly. That's Full Empty. It doesn't do as well. I don't think the producer was who you wanted to work with on that one.
No.
And so the band breaks up off of the fact that album didn't do well. And again, like you said, music industry zigged when your music was zagging, and it kind of wasn't your fault. Like it was just, that's where things went.
Yeah, and I couldn't get on a tour bus anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was done.
Yeah. I'd read somewhere that you had you get dropped by Sire, and in your mind, like, the idea of having to get back on the horse again was like the most abhorrent thing to you. You're just like, I will not go.
I couldn't get on a tour bus again. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, the main thing the main thing was playing showcases for label people.
Yeah. It's so dehumanizing.
When I tell people, that we played at CBGB's, and that show where we played is where we got signed.
Mm-hmm.
The band was almost done at that point.
Sure. Interesting.
Because riding around and playing in front of those stone-faced label people, it was awful for me. It was not. I really, really hated it.
It's an audition. Auditions are generally nerve-wracking, full of anxiety, and relatively dehumanizing. So
yes, exactly. Yeah, and the time that we played at CBGB's, and getting back to that Matheny thing, talk about feeling like you're a genuine person, because I'm very, very independent.
Mm-hmm.
So we're at CBGB's and we're getting ready to go on, and I'm already feeling like awful about, well, here we are playing another show. So, please like us.
Yeah.
Please like us so much.
Mm-hmm.
I'm already in a bad mood about doing that. And there's this tall person standing behind me, really tall. And I turn around, and who do you think it is? Joey Ramone.
I was about to say, yeah.
I'm like, hey, how's it going? Hey, I'm Joey.
I was like, I know.
And I'm like, he goes, what are you guys doing? and all that. And I said, well, we're here playing a show for label people.
Label reps.
He goes, oh. So I had to stand up there feeling like a whore.
Yeah.
And another one of these label things.
Yeah.
With Joey Ramone. He enjoyed it. With
Yeah.
Joey Ramone standing back there kind of bopping along, and me just like, God, of all the people to be in here when I'm having to do this.
Right.
But yeah, that was the main thing. I couldn't, my soul could not fathom running around all over the place, playing those shows again to try and get signed. I couldn't do that.
So what I also kind of saw, and I don't know if these two things are connected, but they might be, you were at that same moment writing a screenplay about your teenage years.
Mm-hmm.
And then either it was bringing about, or you were also at the same time suffering from like panic attacks.
Writing that screenplay caused me to go into a really, really dark depression.
Sure.
And I probably should have been hospitalized.
Mm-hmm.
And the last tour that we did, I was on average having 4 panic attacks a night.
Jeez.
You would never know it. And it was absolutely terrifying.
Sure.
Yeah.
So when we got back from that I'm 5'11", and I've been lifting a lot the last 2 years. Actually, this is me chubby. I weigh 179 pounds. I've never weighed that much in my life. When we got back from that last tour, I weighed 156 pounds.
Oh, wow.
I looked like a cadaver.
Mm-hmm.
And but yeah, I was done between the screenplay thing and the band. There was so much animosity being caused in the band from 2 members against 2 other members. I'm not going to name the names.
Sure.
It was not good.
Yeah.
The whole thing, it just turned into a just big wall of shit.
Yeah.
Even independent from me,
right.
It had turned into that.
Yep.
And, and what were you going to do? I mean, for that type of band, I mean, I do have some tattoos now, but I didn't get tattoos until I was 55 because I used to make fun of them all the time. I mean, what am I going to do? Get a bunch of tattoos and start wearing black leather jackets and and do a grunge band?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's the only thing you could do if you were going to stay in the business.
Right.
No, a lot of bands went by the wayside of that era or went into hibernation. Now, thankfully, with the zeitgeist is a circle. Thankfully and not thankfully, depending on how you want to look at it. Some of that comes back. The cycle comes back into melodic music, sort of like that more folk songwriter type of thing with a different flavor. But yeah, no, it's such an interesting time to be in a band, to have had success up to that point, and then someone just taps you on the shoulder and just been like, nah, it's not your night. Like you're done. And you're just like, but this was our whole life.
Yeah. And it was. And I mean, that's start all over again.
Yeah.
That's show, as I say, that's show business, baby.
Yeah.
And there's one other through line that I think probably is just grinding you down over all that time, in that kind of probably not able to be your full genuine self, in that around that same time you do an interview with The Advocate, and come out as gay publicly. But it was something that I'm sure throughout that time frame, you just, 80s, 90s, not exactly the time for that to be I was in the theater world. So like, I knew how difficult that was for people. I also, figure the label's probably telling you have to keep it quiet or doesn't acknowledge whatever. They're putting you in videos where you're with women. So like, they're putting you in a spot where they're even just ignoring the reality and forcing you to be something you're not publicly.
Well, this is what I think, even though there was never a discussion, but I am 100% certain that it's kind of the opposite of what you're saying. I think it was expected that by that 4th record, in order to sell records and for it to be sensational, that I was going to come out and say that I was gay.
Okay.
Oh, they wanted to use it as a
Yes,
selling
I could
point.
feel that.
Oh.
And I wasn't willing to do that.
No, I don't
to
imagine
sell
you would
records.
be. Yeah.
I mean, other people have done that, you know,
Sure.
not me. And, you know, and now, you know,
Yeah.
under high school, it's very, all the songs, it's obvious, you know,
Yeah.
most of them are about dudes. But
Right.
back then, the only reason that I would have done that was to sell records.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was not willing to do that.
Well,
Totally
good for you.
understand
Well, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, good for me, maybe. You know, I mean, I don't know what your 401k looks like, but we could compare those. So.
Yeah. But it's interesting too. And when I read that bit of your of your history right there, it reminded me too of someone like a Bob Mould or someone like that, who also has come out, you know, very publicly. Sure. This is who I am. But again, he's like, I'm not gonna. He's like, I'm not going to sensationally try and use this to sell records. He's like, it's just that is part of who I am, but I'm still writing songs and playing the guitar the way that I did. So away you go. Yeah.
Right. And so like a little bit of a dip into your previous, like, again, those teenage years. I thought this was a fascinating story. If I have it right, you were in a nice neighborhood and your father moves you to like a trailer park kind of thing and puts you in your own independently of him.
Well, no.
Okay.
Well,
I wanted to get this down.
You're there a little bit. So when I was 12, and actually my dad owned trailer parks.
Okay.
When I was a kid. So I come from the trailer park.
Got it.
But we lived on Missionary Ridge in Chattanooga.
Yeah.
In a really nice neighborhood. We were one of the only families there that wasn't Jewish. Lived across the street from the mayor, so you kind of get an idea what those houses might have looked like.
Right.
And my dad came in one day and said, we're moving to Florida to get in the nursery business. And we drove down to Florida, and it was a clay road, and there was a trailer on the back of these 5 acres.
Got it. Yeah.
And it wasn't even a new trailer; it was a used trailer.
I should admit, I meant more rural, not necessarily.
Yeah, no, it was extremely rural.
I didn't mean that trailer parks were equal to lesser. I meant more like you went somewhere where that was kind of the only thing around.
Yeah. So, and, you know, we're like, well, you know, Dad, where are the nurseries? And he's like, oh, we're going to build the nurseries.
It's not here yet. So, we're getting in the business at the ground floor.
Yeah. So but there was a little trailer up at the front up there. And I had started showing and training horses. And, I think I was I 15? Yeah, I was 15. And my father had split the property, one of the acres off that had a small nursery on it. And there was that little trailer at the front. And he said, you know, I've done this. I'll pay for your clothes and your food going forward. But if you want to keep doing the horses and all this other stuff, you want to buy a vehicle, then you need to get out there and work in that nursery.
Wow.
I didn't live in the trailer up front, but I did stay up there a lot.
Yeah.
I
did hear that you let your friends, when they bought beer or acquired beer throughout the week, to store it in your refrigerator and come back after the weekend or something like that?
Yes. I was the weird, quiet kid, but I had all the shelves out of that refrigerator. And people would bring and the trailer was unlocked, and other kids would bring their beer
and just store it there
and put it in the refrigerator. And then on Friday night, when they're all underage, going out drinking, they would come by and get their beer.
I'm sure you had a tax, like I'll take at least one or two of each, you know?
Yeah. It was interesting.
That is awesome. And then, I guess one quick question about that time. So clearly you have a stunning voice. It's from what I understand, a 3, almost 4 octave range.
Oh, really?
And where does music grab you? Like, given all of that history, like where in there did you say, I want to sing and write music? Like, where did music kind of grab a hold of your brain?
It was really, I used to. That little trailer that was up at the front, I had a little transistor radio.
Awesome.
And I had a little weight bench in there, and I had a mattress on the floor. And I had I don't even know where I got it. I had a little cheap guitar that I would bang around on.
Awesome.
But I don't remember really writing any songs. So I had some knowledge, obviously, because I know I could play some chords. But other than that, until I got to really when I moved in with Ed, you know, Ed had a guitar, I could sing, and we just started writing songs.
That's amazing. So all self-taught.
Yeah, even now, all of the high school music that you hear, I can write a song. I have no idea what chords I'm playing. I don't want to know. I have a guitar book. It's up in the closet. I've never opened it. And yeah, I write by ear, and I show it to my two fellas at the studio.
That's
and
fantastic.
I never play it again.
That's right.
They
well, I know
translate.
we've gone way longer than we had even thought, so I appreciate you sticking around with us. I do want to play some high school music, if you still have a few moments.
Oh yeah, I'm a Leo, and I'm a narcissist, so we need to hear some of what
Beautiful.
We need to hear what I'm doing now.
Yes,
Okay?
absolutely.
So we'll just touch on really quick how the JudyBats really kind of close out is you spend a little bit of time with two other members on a band called the Doubters Club that goes through one attempt, and then they run off in the sunset with all the equipment. And then in the year 2000, you bring back the JudyBats with a whole other band, but it wasn't you who did it. It was a millionaire control freak. So I just thought people can go look up those stories on their own and just know that there was some interesting moments there.
Yeah. I was like, I'm never doing music again, and I get pulled into it. Never doing music again, pulled into it.
Right.
And now, you know, I'm fortunate. I live in my little paid-for house. I'm debt-free. The studio where I record John, Todd Baker, and Greg Comer that I work with, they're really talented musicians. And John owns a really nice recording studio that's 11 minutes from here.
Wow.
And I do music now as a hobby.
Yeah. You have 5 albums under the name Heiskell.
Yeah. And a whole lot of singles and stuff too.
Right. And it's great music. So there's 2 particular tracks I want to play. The first one, I think, has a really neat, I think you'll still hear the former sound in it. I don't even necessarily want to call it a JudyBats sound. It's more of just the sound people maybe be associating with Jeff Heiskell is in here, and it's a killer video too. The name of the song is Still Life with Broken Hearts by Heiskell. Kind of looks like a Magritte painting came to life, and I mean, it's really great.
Yeah, we set that up in the basement.
Oh, really?
Basement, right underneath where I'm sitting. Yeah.
Oh, neat. I like the sock puppets.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. And sort of speaks to what we sort of alluded to before, like if we were to talk about the specific Jeff Heiskell tendencies, like this speaks more to that, just in the sound and what you choose to put in these videos. Again, we're moving towards the evocative, towards the postmodern, and a little less on the nose imagery and things like that. Very cool video.
It's a very cool video. And are you the concept creator for the visuals, or was there other people involved?
Yeah. I bought that table for $10 at a thrift store and cut the whole lot of it for my head and painted it silver.
Yeah.
Nice.
I hadn't thought about this in a long time either.
Great chat. And again, like we said, there's 5 albums. The sound does go in other directions. The other song I have is a much more different sound. So I'm actually going to switch over to that one just because I want to make sure we get to it. The other track, I think, has got to have a story to it. The name of it is I Want More Life. And I think it's when I read these like bio moments obviously are coming from other things, and this hauntingly beautiful storytelling. I think this one has a haunt to it, but it is stemming from something very beautiful in that you want more life to spend with someone you love.
Yeah. I bought this keyboard at a thrift store for $15. And it's real interesting because I wrote that I don't just write on the guitar.
Sure.
I wrote that on the keyboard. The minute I got it done, the keyboard died and it quit and I had to throw it in the trash.
Wow.
So some of the lyric that evolved from that is from the keyboard. The fact that this little thing that I bought for nothing, and it worked just fine. And then the minute that I get the chord progression, all that stuff done, and I kind of had I arranged the song. I had a little bit of lyric. So it probably is about that thrift store keyboard as much as anything else.
That's even better. So the keyboard is singing to you.
Yes.
Because it loves that song. I think that's even amazing. But let's take a listen. And I'm going to let this play a little bit. I think it needs a little time to breathe. So check out the song I Want More Life by Heiskell.
When you come bring a hatchet, boy, I'm ripe for this divide. Tonight I feel that ghoulish joy. All giggling aside, oh beggar, beggar, beggar time. The master and the muse, they should have set this babe on fire. So born to lose. I want more life. I want more life. I want more life. I need more time to spend with you. Some faded gray.
So just not like when I first got your note about accepting to come on the show, I always go through this holy shit moment, and then I'm like, okay, I got to take this, I got to dive in and start doing the research and stuff. And I was like, especially since I didn't know anything about what you were doing under the name Heiskell, so I'm diving in. I'm like, wow, this is different and super interesting. But I will tell you that like I was just popping on a bunch of different songs and reading, kind of getting caught up on some things, and then moved on about my day. But a couple days later, I had to come back to this song because it just was haunting in my head. Like I just couldn't get to, like just kept like melody-wise, just kept coming back to my ears, and I just wanted to listen to it again. And I just think it's a really, really great track.
Yeah, thanks. I probably never written anything that minimalist.
Sure.
And it's really what I was going for. It's like I want to write something that has the least amount of instrumentation as possible.
Sure.
Which is very difficult to do that. Because if you're in the studio with all of these talented people, like we completely write organically. I take a song over to the studio and they're like, what do you want it to sound like? I'm like, I don't know. I don't care. Everything is written in the moment.
Yeah.
The bass line, the drums, it's written and it's recorded right then. So when you have people that are that talented, you have to be careful because you could just glom on and lay on track after track after track, And something that is a complete opposite of this song is earlier before we started taping, I was telling you about that song. What was the song that? Crap, I'm not trying to think of it now. Old Dead Black Roses. There's a song called Old Dead Black Roses. I think there are 83 tracks on there.
Oh, wow.
Between 5 tracking background vocals and things like that. That one is extremely dense. So it just, I mean, that's the thing, but it's really hard to write a song like this when you've got talented people around.
Sure.
When is enough enough?
Yeah.
You know?
You also have to know when to stop, and you have to trust what you put down, you know, because it's, I know in the studio, sometimes we keep adding things because we're just like, well, we're still not sure. And sometimes the answer is not just to add more things, but
right.
So yeah, I think it was last year I released a song that was a single. It's kind of trashy. Some of the new stuff I do is a little bit trashy. A little song I wrote in like 5 minutes called "I'm Not Sweet on You," and that was recorded. I did the vocal. I think 4 hours maybe.
Yeah.
And then we're going to come back to it. Like we just like, let's stop with this mix. This mix is sounding good. We're going to mess it up.
Yeah.
Thinking we're going to come back and we're going to, you know, tidy up the mix a little bit. And 2 days later, I was like, you know, send this to be mastered.
That's the best.
I don't want to mix it anymore. Let's just leave it alone.
Yeah. No, that's the best. And that to me is like, that's success to me as a creator, is knowing when to be like, and we're done. Like, just to trust yourself, to trust the people around you, and they trust you, to just be like, and we're good. Let's put it out. Let's not hold this too precious. Let's put it out. We like it.
Yeah. And you know, like I said, you know, I'm real fortunate. I'm 62. I still have a 3-octave range. But for the most part, when I go to the studio now, I only sing things twice.
Sure.
Oh, interesting.
3 times maybe, but back in the day, all those records that you like, punch-ins, singing it over and over and over and over again.
Yep.
I have several songs now that I sing it one time, I'm done.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. You finished up, you just be like, it's all in there, guys. We'll make it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, great stuff. I mean, there's so many more, both JudyBats tracks as well as Heiskell tracks that I would have loved to have brought on, but we're already at an hour and a half, and that's probably 50% longer than we typically go. So I super appreciate your spending time with us, diving into this stuff, sharing such great stories.
I enjoyed it. You definitely brought some things. To tell you the truth, I had completely forgotten that there was a video for Is Anything.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. The minute you said that, I'm like, oh, I kind of remember that.
It looked like it was on, it was probably 120 minutes or something like that on MTV. Some of that late night stuff that they were going to be a little bit edgier.
And that Budweiser commercial. I would have in the nursing home had a moment of lunacy when I remembered that. I have not thought about that in 20 years.
Oh, that is fantastic.
Yeah.
But
my favorite part of that is the Pat Metheny part.
The story about it, yes, that is terrific. But what can we promote? Like, obviously, the music's out there. People can come to the Heiskell Music site. We'll link to that in the show notes, so they can purchase some stuff, merch, or the hard copies.
I'll tell you the main thing. I'm really bad. I know I should have everything on Bandcamp where I can charge you $1. But, when it gets right down to it, there's no money in this shit. So basically, wherever you get your music,
sure,
whether it's Spotify, Apple Music, all of the Heiskell stuff is available on all of those platforms.
Yeah. And do you still perform? Like, do you still perform the Heiskell stuff out there?
No.
Okay.
People all the time, why don't you do a live show? Do a live show. And I'm like, no. I have no interest in that at all.
Interesting. Okay.
I love to write and I love to record, so
those are the parts that you like the best. Yeah.
That's right.
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, again, I say to me, that's another, I would note that as a success note in an artist of knowing what you want to do and what you don't.
Like you talked about before, boundaries and limits and all that stuff. Yeah, keeps you happy. Oh, and one last way they can help support you. You are a real estate agent, so if you have to either buy or sell a home in the Knoxville area, they should.
That is right. If you're looking to buy or you're looking to sell in the Knoxville area, Jeff Heiskell is your man.
And your go-to move is listed $5,000 higher than what it was meant to be.
Exactly. Yes.
See, I got you more money. But anyway, Jeff, thank you so much. This was such a wonderful talk.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Talk to you soon. Dan.
Phil.
Jeff Heiskell.
That was wild. That was fun. I love talking to people from an era, that particular era, because the stories that come out of people, again, like the JudyBats were known, they had great success, but certainly, there were bands that we would think of as, bigger and more successful, but everyone's got great stories, and I'm here for the stories.
And totally. And that's what both our shows are about is, yes, it's great music that you should pay attention to. But while we're here, let's hear the stories.
Yeah. I like to hear, and I like the backroom stuff. And I like stories about I almost died shooting this video. I mean, I don't like that he almost died, but but when he said that, I was like, well, of course, because at that point in your career, you're almost fodder at that point.
Yep.
Well, we got to get the shot. We're going to kill the lead singer. Well, that's a risk we're willing to
Phil,
take.
let's say goodbye to everybody.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Your Next Favorite Band. We'd like to sincerely thank Jeff Heiskell of the JudyBats and of Heiskell for joining us today, sharing these incredible backstories, these the inspirations, the peeks into what it was like to have a lot of that label success, but the label control, and also when it comes to a close and how that is a very difficult moment, and all the other different aspects of everything in between. What a wonderful, wonderful story. Thank you to Jeff. We will link to everything in the show notes from his current music, the past music, some of the different articles, different things. If I can remember where I found the Budweiser commercial, I'll link to that as well. I think it was a live Cracker show, and it was somewhere in the middle there. But anyway, we will link to it all, including, like we said, where you get music, Spotify, YouTube, his website, all that good stuff. And make sure you give it a subscribe and a like and a follow. And, just enjoy that music that he has coming out and has written in the past. As always, our hope here on Your Next Favorite Band is to bring you your next favorite band. If you tuned in tonight because you already knew the JudyBats or Jeff Heiskell or the Heiskell music, thank you so much. We hope you like what you heard and saw, that you might subscribe to our show, and we can introduce you to your next favorite band in a future week. Or your next favorite band might already be out there. We've got almost 150 episodes at nextfaveband.com. And if you need any help navigating that, and you want a recommendation on which one you should go check out based on your musical interests, we'd love to help you out with that. Just give us a shout, and we love to do that. Hope to see you at a live show soon. Stick around for one more track from the JudyBats. A fun one that we just wanted to kind of close things out with. Here is Intense Beige off of Pain Makes You Beautiful by the JudyBats.
Parceled out like oxygen, everywhere but very thin. Sampling for sampling's sake, you're an obvious mistake. Anyway, you're an intense beige, but that's okay. Parceled out like oxygen, everywhere but very thin. Sampling for sampling's sake, you're an obvious mistake. Anyway, you're an intense beige, but that's okay. What you gonna do when it all comes true? It makes you feel blue and then you get lonely. You get what you want, it makes you feel sad, and everything you got to say that's only too bad. sliding in and out of phase, massing mindless in a maze. Nothing ventured, nothing dared, fake opaque and very scared. Anyway, you're an intense beige, but that's okay. Sliding in and out of phase, massing mindless in a maze. Nothing ventured, nothing dared, fake opaque and very scared. Anyway, you're an intense beige, but that's okay. Talking to yourself, it makes it kinda hard. You're always on your guard, your life is snoring. Fear of extinction keeps you in the yard. You don't go out much anymore, you're so boring. It's so sad. Blue, cheesy channel, nothing new. Super square and squeaky clean. Happy little hygiene queen. Anyway, you're an intense beige, but that's okay. Barely on the edge of blue, cheesy channel, nothing new. Super square and squeaky clean. Happy little hygiene queen. Anyway, you're an intense beige, but that's okay. Yeah, what you gonna do when it all comes true? It makes you feel blue and then you get lonely. You get what you want, it makes you feel sad, and everything you got's the same, that's only too bad. So shut up. I love you anyway. You're an intense beige. That's okay. You're an intense beige. I love you anyway.